Hello, this is part one of a three-part series on using the biology of trauma to strengthen our healing. Part one is understanding the brain. A lot of the information in this section about the brain was taught to us by Dr. Bruce Perry, who is one of the superstars of our field. I highly recommend his book, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. So Bruce Perry has laid out for us some of the important aspects of our brains and how they develop. The brain is hierarchical. It has several main parts, and they develop in sequence as the child is born and then grow. Each part has its unique functions and specializations, and they each depend on the part below it. They must work together. The better they work together, the better we function as a person. This development happens based on how we use our brains. If we use our brains well and frequently in the context of relationships with others, our brains maximize their growth and maximize the connections between different parts. As I mentioned, this happens sequentially over time, and it happens most rapidly early in life. It is true, we know now, that the brain can develop at any stage of life, but the most rapid development happens early in life. The parts that develop first, the primitive parts, are the parts that are the hardest to heal and change. And actually this makes sense because this is the part of our brain that controls our body, and it controls things that aren't voluntary, like breathing, digestion, blood flow. The things we don't have to decide to do. And we don't really want that part of our brain changing very fast. The lowest part of the brain does not have language, and it is both sends communications to the body and receives communications from the body. The human brain evolved in a period where the stress was quite different than what we experience now. Early people had certainly stress, very acute and scary stress when a lion tried to eat them or something, but it was a specific stress and then it was gone, and then they were able to relax until another stress came along. Right now in our lives we're dealing with chronic stress that's always there, and we're trying to deal with that with a brain that was designed for acute stress. So let's talk about the organization of the brain, the most basic organization. And it develops from bottom to top. The earliest part of the brain is the brain stem, the primitive brain. This is the part of the brain that we have in common with all animals. And this is the part of the brain that manages our body. It does all the running of the chemicals of our body, the hormones, the digestion, the elimination, the blood circulating, the heart beating, the breathing, all the basic things that keep us alive. The second part of the brain is the emotional and the danger protection part of the brain. This is the part of the brain that takes care of our entire emotional life, attachment, connection, what we love and what we hate. Emotions have the purpose of bringing us towards things and having us move away from things, and that's all housed in this part of the brain. Furthermore, this is the part of the brain where our survival response, our danger response is housed, where there's constant scanning for danger and responses to enable the body to be most suited to stay alive when there is danger. And then finally, we have the neocortex, the thinking brain. I should mention that the emotional brain we have in common with all mammals. The thinking brain, on the other hand, is uniquely human. This is the part of our brain that does planning, executive functioning. This is where our language lies. This is where our ability to prioritize, to give up what we want at the moment to get a long-term goal, to plan, to concentrate, to pay attention to one thing and ignore another. All of this is in this neocortex thinking brain. So what happens with trauma? How does a trauma affect the development of the brain? it is important the age at which people have different experiences. If the child is neglected and or abused early in life, let's say before age 2 roughly, that's when the primitive brain is at its strongest development. And if that part of the brain isn't working smoothly, then you see a person who doesn't have easy communication between brain and body. This may be someone who actually can't interpret the signals of their body. They don't know if they're hungry, thirsty, or need to go to the bathroom. They may be overactive, or they may be underactive. They may have odd gait or have difficulty with physical tasks. Various signals that you get with them show you that their body is not at ease. If there's trauma in the area of the emotional brain, this is the area of relationships and attachments and emotions, and thus a person hurt at this time might be over emotional or easily reactive to small things that happen, or under emotional. They may not have trust in relationships. And this is also the part of the brain that manages our danger reaction. And if we've experienced a lot of danger, we can be oversensitive to danger. And we can see danger where someone else might not see any. A person might, in an interaction with us, be neutral, and that might feel to us like they're being hostile. It also means that we're constantly concentrating on danger. We're looking around for where the danger is all the time. We expect it any moment. This, of course, interferes with many other things we might be doing. And if the thinking brain is damaged or not fully developed, then it's harder for someone to pause before acting and evaluate a situation before making a decision about what to do. Thus, they might be impulsive, overreactive. The language might be impaired. There might be less ability to put their feelings into words. In all of us, when we are under stress, when we feel there's danger in our environment, our thinking brain is less available. At that time, when we're in danger, we don't need to analyze, plan, or figure out how to concentrate on just one thing. Instead, we are hyper-focused on the danger and the safety. We don't need analysis, we need action. We see things in black and white, and we pay attention to what we should do to stay safe. We can't think about the long term. We're thinking about the short term of staying safe. This is true for all of us, and especially true for people who have experienced trauma, because their thinking brain may not be as well developed in the first place, and second, all the connections may not be as well developed. So they're especially vulnerable to being unable to think at all when emotionally distressed. So how do we see this? What does this mean in terms of behavioral implications? If the primitive brain is damaged or less well developed, the body may be primitive. You may see someone who has trouble with bathroom functions, with eating, with sleeping, with relaxing. If the emotional brain is less well developed, you may see a person who much more easily falls into depths of intolerable despair, who feels that often that all is hopeless, that whatever's gone wrong now, it'll never be any better, that no one will ever like them, that they're a complete loser, that feels terrible most of the time, doesn't trust relationships, so therefore can't get help from others with this, and as I mentioned, is overly likely to see someone as threatening, even if they're neutral. And if the thinking brain isn't well developed, then all the abilities to problem solve, plan, and use language are all less available to that person. So what do we do about this? How do we help heal these parts of the brain? Well, the primitive brain, as I mentioned, doesn't have language, so we don't heal it by talking. We heal it by activity, by rhythmic, repetitive, rewarding activity. And we heal it by relationships, by calm, soothing, using rhythm to soothe and to regulate this part of the brain is helped by us being in regulation. When we are regulate, this part of the body can help itself regulate. We also teach about the body, like we say, oh, are you feeling hungry? Maybe what we need to do is get some food. Maybe you're thirsty. We try to offer these things and teach how to interpret the signs of your body. If the person has damage in the emotional brain, the healing comes from rich relationships. Those are relationships which include respect, information, connection, and hope. It's within trustworthy, compassionate relationships that the emotional brain can learn to soothe itself and to calm down. It's also part of healing this brain is teaching self-capacities or feelings management skills, which we'll go into shortly. And then to build the thinking brain, what we basically do is think with someone, teach them how to think through problems. Even if you sit down with someone and say, well, let's make a list of the pros and cons of that. You're teaching them a technique of using executive skills to help decide what to do next. Just talking with someone, reading to them, discussing their day, discussing things you went together. And I'm not talking about therapy talking, I'm just talking about conversation. That helps build this part of the brain. Another thing that helps build this part of the brain is anything to do with self-awareness. Anything we can do to cultivate in someone the ability to pay attention to yourself. So that can be journaling, it could be an emotions chart, it could be just saying, well, what were the best things of your day today? What were the hardest things? And it's also, we teach these skills by using them ourselves and narrating out loud that we're doing so. Like, oh, this room is really a mess, let's clean it up. Well, let's see, first let's get the clothes, then second we'll pick up all the pencils, and third, you're teaching how to organize a task when you do that. So it's partly by watching us use these skills that a client will themselves learn to use them. And as I mentioned, the brain can be changed in any age, but it's never easy to change. It takes lots of repetitions to build a brain. And you can see this with a young child when they're learning a skill like learning to walk. A young child learning to walk falls down many times before they finally master the skill. And in fact, it's harder to change the brain later in life, but possible. Naturally, the lowest part of the brain is the hardest to change, as I said, because it manages the body, because it's the more primitive part, because it doesn't have language. The emotional brain's next, and then the thinking brain with language and skills is the easiest to change, but easiest doesn't mean. Another important fact about brains is that they develop by what is used. Whatever is used in our brain is strengthened. Whatever we don't use is pruned away. So we should think about this. If we want our kids to develop some particular skill, we have to give them a chance to use it. That's the only way they're going to develop it. This is also how memories are made. Memories are made because connections are made when you hear things or experience things together. Sometimes once, sometimes over and over again, and those things become connected in your brain. So I say peanut butter and you say jelly, it's because you've heard these things connected all this time. So we want to be deliberate about this. We want to offer kids and adults ability to practice what we want them to be better at. If we want them to be happy, we want to practice happiness. If we want them to connect to others, we want them to practice connections. If we want them to associate other people with help and reliability, then we want to be helpful and reliable and have them experience that over and over again so that a connection like that can be made. In order for our kids to heal, they need more than words. They don't just need to talk about what happened to them. They need experiences. And rhythmic experiences are especially powerful in healing the brain. Human beings are rhythmic creatures. We have rhythms in our day, sleep and wake. We have rhythms in our seasons, in our year. Everyone who's been around a young child knows that the best way to soothe a child who's fussy is through a rhythmic activity such as rocking or even riding in the car. But if you think about it, adults use rhythm to manage emotions constantly. We use rhythms in our celebrations with singing. We use rhythms in our worship. We use rhythms in our sadness. If you've ever thought of being at a concert and then at some point in the concert, the person that's performing brings the audience into it and has them, say, singing the chorus, think of how connected you felt as a group and how everyone started to feel happier because of that rhythmic connection. So let's use that in our own work to help brains grow. Bruce Perry suggests that this is because rhythm is so powerful, because at the time in our lives when all our needs are being met and we're perfectly happy, we are in a rhythmic environment, namely when we're in the womb with the heartbeat. And he suggests that's the original source of our reliance on rhythm. So if we can provide rhythmic activities that are within relationship, in other words, that people are doing together, if you think about, there's many such things in society, and that they are match the age and development of the person you're working with. In other words, there's something that they can handle. They're repetitive, because we said brains need repetition to change. And they're rewarding and fun, otherwise why was anybody going to do them? And of course they respect the child's beliefs and culture, or maybe bring in their culture, because every culture has rhythmic traditions. That's what will be more healing. Who knew? Maybe jump rope rhymes are the most important source of therapy that we have. Here's a table that shows us what sort of things help a child develop the different parts of their brain. This has ramifications beyond working with people these ages, because we think about our clients and realize that they're stuck in some of these tasks and some of these ages. So we can use what is normal to develop a child at those ages. We can use that now, no matter what age the client is, to help develop some of these functions that are still not organized in the client, even though the client is chronologically older. An important part of brains is that they do have reward chemicals. They have chemicals that make us feel good. And the most common time for those chemicals to be released is when we're connected with other people. Our bodies are designed to facilitate connection with other people because it's a survival mechanism to be able to connect with others. You're much more likely to be able to stay alive, get dinner, fight off danger if you have some friends. So connection itself is rewarding. If a person doesn't have enough connection, they can turn to other sources of reward, like perhaps drugs or self-harm or unconnected sex. But if they have positive connection, they'll be less vulnerable. And one of the things we have to remember is that the brain is an organ. It's part of our body. There isn't such a thing as a separate psychology and a separate physical brain, although sometimes Western medicine makes us think there is. It's all physical. And therefore, our physical care of our bodies and of those we serve is also very important. If we're in a type of a program where we're giving anyone food, whether we have the opportunity to provide exercise and movement, these things too, nutritious food and pleasurable movement are essential in building brain. Attuned interaction with others is how brains grow from babies to any time in life. And that's the kind of interaction where both people are connected to each other. What one does affects the other. They're picking up on each other's signals, matching the signals, reacting immediately to change. So if the baby is smiling, the mother says, "Oh, you're smiling, I'm glad you're happy." And if the baby makes a little frown, the mother says, "What's the matter?" If the mother looks away, the baby tries to re-engage her. These type of interactions are what develop those connections in the brain, and develop the ability to soothe oneself, and the ability to know oneself, and the ability to self-regulate. So this same attunement that's essential in the growth of a child is essential at any age. We have to pay attention to whether we're offering this to our clients and what the barriers are for us to do so. So again, you can't change a part of the brain if you're not using that part of the brain. So you can't change that primitive body-based part of the brain by words, because if you're just talking, you're not using that part of the brain. When you're physically active, that's when you can change that part of the brain and help smooth down the connections between brain and body. That the best way is when you're doing physical activity plus warm and caring relationships. What are some of those physical things you could be doing together with clients? Dance, music, singing, playing ball, just throwing a beach ball back and forth. Pets, petting pets, rocking, walking together, being in rhythm together, swinging, talking while each of you is on a swing. Patty cake. Think about the attunement that's necessary to do one of those patty cake things. Jump rope, marching, drumming is very, very healing. All these things engage people in rhythm together. So it's not just through talking about what happened to you and good coping skills. That's not really the way people heal. Instead, reforming the brain, rhythmic, helping the brain to become more smooth and calm. And another part of this is that babies form expectations about relationships when they're forming that primitive brain. That's where those templates, those expectations of what people are like, are stored in our body. They're not stored in words because we didn't have words then. And so if we want to change those expectations, we need to activate that part of the body. The most powerful way to help someone begin to trust others is to be doing physical movement things, rhythmic things together, and have both people engaged and laughing and enjoying whatever physical activity you're doing. And again, you have to do this over and over again. It's not going to change overnight. So what does that mean for us as helpers? Well, we're not going to be doing this dancing with clients or jump rope or patty cake or even walking or swinging if we're exhausted, if we're overwhelmed, if we're overworked. We need to be happy and strong. We need to enjoy our clients. We need to be part of the activities in order to be able to both help the activity be rewarding for the client and also to help it, that we won't continue doing it unless it's fun for both of us. So therefore, if we're distracted or exhausted or sarcastic, we're not changing their ideas about people. We're confirming their ideas about people. But if we're hopeful and energetic and having fun with them, that's when we're changing their ideas about people. So note to agencies, wearing out your staff greatly undermines their ability to create change. Another way that we build brains is by actually teaching skills, and these are the feelings management skills. Interconnection is that idea of making connection to somebody and remembering them when they're not there. And you form this by having trustworthy relationships and having people that leave for brief periods of time and then come back and you can trust. We can be those interconnections for our clients, and we can help them develop that skill by using transitional objects. I'm going on vacation, so you keep this rock from my office till I get back. or keep a journal and we'll look at it when I get back. We teach them that people can leave and they come back. We say, I'm going off shift now. Remember, I'll be back Tuesday at 9. And then, in fact, that's when we come back. Where all of this is part of changing someone's expectations of other people. Then we're also working on helping them develop a sense that they're worthy of the air they breathe. And you cannot do this just by telling them that they're good persons. You have to help them to have experiences of being good people, experiences of success, experiences of trying something that they love, like playing the guitar, and getting better at it. Opportunities to be leaders for others, opportunities to give to others, to maybe read to an elderly person at a rehab center, or help a younger child learn to draw or understand a computer game. And then gradually maybe the child or adult will trust you enough to tell you some of the things they're ashamed about. You can help heal that by not, in fact, being repulsed. All the while we're doing this, we're teaching feelings management skills, teaching the names for feelings, teaching how to modulate feelings. Even when we say, take a deep breath, and that's teaching of feelings management skills. Learning about how to communicate your feelings to others, how to get through hard times without making them worse, learning how to profit from the wisdom of your feelings. And remember, with each of these things, one of the ways that most powerfully that we convey these skills to our clients is by using them ourselves and narrating out loud or pointing out how we're managing our feelings as when we're with our client. I mentioned about executive functioning. Executive functioning is comprised of lots of skills, like how to pay attention to one thing out of many, how to organize your life, choose what you're going to work, what's most important to you, plan how to achieve it, inhibit your impulses to do something else at the moment in order to get a longer term goal. Starting a task and staying with it till it's done, regulating your emotions so that you can get some tasks done. And then the whole area of self-awareness, noticing yourself, paying attention to what's happening with you, learning to understand yourself. All these things are developed within relationships, within connection. Parents or caretakers provide these executive functions for children, saying out loud what they're doing, and gradually the children learn them and learn to do them themselves. Parents do a lot of things which teach children executive functioning, like just talking to them, talking about events that happened, asking them what they thought about that event, or what did they like about that day, what didn't they like, reading to them, making plans, making a list of what are the things we need to pack for the trip. That's executive functioning. And generally providing assistance until the kid gradually learns to do it on their own. Well, whatever age our clients are, we're engaged in the same process with them. So in summary, the brain develops sequentially. It has some unique parts, each which has their own function. They all depend on each other, and we want them all to have a lot of connections between them so we can use the wisdom of our entire brain to make good decisions. And all that happens within relationships. It's through relationships that all those connections are developed. And it's through relations that they can be developed at any age. And that is what we are doing, building better brains. Here's an extensive bibliography about this. Thank you very much.